Hi there, and thanks for tuning in again to Vengeance Files. We really appreciate every view and every comment. Let us know what city or country you're watching from. We love hearing from people all over the world. Now let's jump into today's story. Chapter 1. Blood Runs Cold. I always thought family was sacred. At 52, I'd built my construction company from the ground up, turning Callahan Builders into one of the top luxury home developers in the Boston area. The worn hands and sun-beaten skin I carried were proof of years on job sites. But when it came to my family, those same hands had only ever been gentle. The Colonial House in the most upscale part of Brooklyn was my crown jewel. I had designed and built it with my own crew as a symbol of everything I had accomplished. That 5-bedroom home, with its flawless landscaping and one-of-a-kind design, had even been featured in magazines. I built it for Denise, my wife of 26 years, and for our 2 kids, Liam and Amber. "Dad, you said you'd help me with my college stuff," Liam reminded me one night in late August as I came in after a brutal day on site. I rubbed my head and left a smear of dust on my temple. "That's right. Boston College, right? Let's go over it this weekend." Liam, 18 and already set on joining the family business, just nodded. "Mom says you're always too busy, says you never make time." The way he said it made me stop and think. It wasn't the first time I'd heard something like that. It was the same complaint Denise had been repeating for months. Over the past year, things had shifted between Denise and me. I figured it was the pressure from work, the stress of prepping Liam for college, and Amber going through her wild teenage streak. Denise had changed too. Her once natural honey blonde hair was now perfectly highlighted. She wore more upscale outfits, went to events I wasn't invited to. I noticed, sure, I just didn't want to admit what it all might mean. That night, when I stepped into our bedroom, I saw her phone light up on the nightstand. The message was from someone saved as T. It flashed, "Miss you, can't wait until..." The rest was cut off, but I didn't need more. The next morning, I skipped our latest Cambridge project and followed her instead. She drove her Mercedes straight to the Harbour Club, a fancy members-only spot I'd helped renovate half a decade. Ergo, she didn't stay alone long. Trevor Wakefield showed up. Trevor, my brother Neil's oldest buddy. He was an investment banker with a $1 million smile and a closet full of tailored suits. I'd never liked him. Now, as Trevor's hand rested possessively on the small of Denise's back while they stepped into the private dining room, I finally understood. Instead of confronting them in the moment, I made a choice that would shape how I'd handle the fallout. I waited, I observed, and I gathered evidence. Over the following 2 weeks, I tracked their meetings, snapped photos of their intimate encounters, and used surveillance gear loaned by a friend in private security to record their conversations from a distance. When I finally laid all the proof in front of Denise, she didn't shed a tear or offer an apology. She simply stood taller and said, "Boy, we've been growing apart for years. Trevor understands me. He sees me. In all our 26 years together raising kids, did he see them too?" I asked, keeping my tone unnervingly calm. "I want a divorce," was all she said, and that was the beginning of all-out war. Denise lawyered, up fast, hiring Maxine Duval, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state. Suddenly I was cast as a distant, angry husband who had emotionally neglected his wife for years. Her version of our life together was so carefully spun that even I started to question my own memories. What hurt most came next. My own blood began siding with her. First Fiona, then Neil, and finally my mother, Dorothy, all taken in by Denise's tears and Trevor's smooth charm. "She's the mother of your children, Boyd," my mom said at a strained family dinner. "Maybe if you'd paid more attention, this wouldn't have happened." I looked around at the people I'd loved and supported for decades and saw nothing but silent judgment. That's when the idea of revenge first began to settle in my chest. The divorce was finalized that May. Denise walked away with the house custody of Amber. She was still just 16 and a hefty payout. I ended up in a bare-bones apartment downtown, overlooking the harbor, spending long nights staring into the dark water, planning. Chapter 2. The Thanksgiving Ultimatum. October rolled in with biting wind and the first test of this new reality. Liam came by the apartment, clearly uncomfortable with the empty space and lack of warmth. "Dad, you should get some real furniture," he said, trying to sit comfortably on one of the only two chairs. I gave a thin smile. "I'm not here much. How's your mum?" He hesitated. "She's fine. She and Trevor are thinking about starting an interior design company. She's always been good with that stuff." My jaw locked. "With what money?" Liam glanced away. "I think Uncle Neil's backing them, and Grandma." That betrayal stung sharper than I expected. My own family helping bankroll my ex-wife and her new man's dream. I moved on from the topic, but the bitterness lingered. Then, as November crept in, I got a message from Fiona. Family Thanksgiving at Mom's. Denise and the kids would be there. Mom said I could come as long as I behaved. "No drama, Boyd," I called Fiona right away. "What do you mean, no drama? I've never caused a scene in my life." Her sigh practically dripped with judgment. "Look, we all get that. You're still angry about the divorce? But it's been 6 months, and honestly, Denise is still part of this family. The kids deserve both of their parents, and Mom needs every one of her children. You're welcome to come as long as you keep quiet and don't throw one of your pathetic tantrums." I gripped my phone tighter. "So, let me get this straight. My ex-wife, the one who cheated on me, is invited with no strings attached, but I need to be on my best behavior." "Trevor will be there too," Fiona added casually, like it didn't matter. "He's been really helpful with Mom's investment portfolio." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Don't worry, I'd rather have dinner with strangers than share a table with stockbrokers." The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving only made things worse. I discovered Trevor had been meeting up with my mother every week, handling her finances. My brother Neil had taken up golf with him. My daughter Amber was posting pictures on social media with him, calling him the coolest almost stepdad. In her captions, every bit of it went straight into the leather notebook I had started keeping. I didn't blow up or drink myself numb like some co-workers had expected. I documented. I dug. I remembered. The day before Thanksgiving, my mom called me. "Boyd, sweetheart, Fiona mentioned you're not coming tomorrow." "That's right, Mom, I'm not invited, not unless I agree to your terms." Her voice turned colder. "Let's not be theatrical. We're just trying to keep the peace. Trevor's been so generous with his time. He's boosted my portfolio by 15% this year alone." I closed my eyes. "Mom, you really believe this? The man who wrecked my marriage is managing your money now?" "That's exactly the mindset we're trying to leave out of the holiday." She snapped. "Your marriage was falling apart long before Trevor. Denise has already explained everything." "I'm sure she has," I replied quietly. "Have a good Thanksgiving." When I ended the call, I made my first serious move. I rang Vince Moretti, an old buddy from my early days in construction, who now owned a private security company. "I need dirt," I told him. "Everything on Trevor Wakefield, bank records, background checks, anything you can get. And keep eyes on my family, all of them." On Thanksgiving Day, while they all gathered without me, I sat in my bare apartment with a frozen dinner. My phone buzzed with a photo from Liam, showing the whole family around my mother's table. Denise sat in my usual seat, right at Mum's side. Trevor was next to her, arms slung behind her chair like he belonged there. Everyone looked happy. The caption read, "Wish you were here, Dad. It's not the same without you." I studied that photo like a blueprint, where everyone was sitting. Who was smiling for real, who looked uneasy. Then I replied, "Enjoy your dinner, son. Next year will be different, I promise." Chapter 3. The Breaking Point. 5 days after Thanksgiving, all the anger I had bottled up finally broke loose. It happened during what was supposed to be a calm lunch with my mother at her country club. "I've been meaning to bring something." "Up," Dorothy said, dabbing the corners of her mouth as she set her napkin down. At 76, she was still composed, silver hair set in perfect waves. "I'm updating my will." I nodded. Sounded reasonable given her age. "Need help finding a good attorney. I know a few solid ones." "Oh, Trevor already introduced me to someone fantastic," she said with a dismissive wave. "That's not why I'm bringing it up. I wanted to give you a heads up about a few things." A wave of unease hit me. What kind of things? Dorothy adjusted her napkin neatly. "I've decided to leave the lake house to Denise. She's always had a special connection to it, and she promised it would stay in the family for Liam and Amber. That place in New Hampshire had been in the Callahan family for 3 generations. I spent every single summer of my childhood there. 10 years ago, I restored it with my own 2 hands. You're leaving my grandfather's home to my ex-wife. I kept my voice steady, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. She's still the mother of my grandchildren, Dorothy shot back. And honestly, you're already well off. You've got your construction business, your investments. Denise is rebuilding with the same man she had an affair with, using our family's money. I said, Mom, can't you see you're being played? Her face turned cold. That kind of talk is what's torn this family apart. Trevor's been nothing but helpful. He's boosted my investment returns significantly. Can I see the paperwork? I asked. That's private, Boyd. You don't trust anyone anymore. When we said goodbye, I gave her a kiss on the cheek out of habit, not affection. I hope you know what you're doing. Later that evening, Vince Moretti called with his early report. You're not going to like this, Boyd. Go on. Your brother Neil has taken out a second mortgage, $300,000. It all went into a new company called Porter Designs. Porter was Denise's last name. I could feel the pressure build in my chest. Keep going. Your sister Fiona. She pulled $150,000 from her retirement fund to invest in the same business. And my mother. Vince hesitated. Your mum made Trevor the co-trustee on her living trust. He now has full access to all her accounts. I sat there barely breathing. There's more, Vince said. Trevor Wakefield isn't his real name. It's Trevor Wilson. He changed it 15 years ago after pulling some shady financial stunts in Florida. Nothing stuck legally, but enough to force a reinvention. My family turned over their entire financial future to a fraud, I said, my voice flat. That's how it looks. And Denise? They've known each other longer than you realize. I found proof. They were in touch on social media at least 4 years ago. That betrayal had been festering inside my home for 4 years. When the call ended, I got a text from Amber. Dad, why are you digging into Trevor? He told everyone you hired a private investigator. Grandma's really upset. Before I could reply, my phone rang. Liam's voice cracked with panic. Dad, what did you do? Everything's a mess. Mom's crying. Grandma says she never wants to speak to you again. Uncle Neil is threatening to sue you. Please help us fix this. I shut my eyes, feeling a sharp, icy sense of truth settle in. I can't fix what they destroyed, Liam. But I can make sure every single one of them pays. Dad, you're scaring me. Don't be afraid, son. Just be ready. Everything's about to shift. That night I made the choice that would change all our lives. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to Patricia Trish Donovan, my longtime attorney and friend. The subject line said, Operation Clean Slate. That was the moment my revenge began. Chapter 4. The Architect of Vengeance. My downtown apartment turned into a strategy hub. The plain white walls were now plastered with photos, financial statements and charts, all linked together with red string. In the middle was a holiday photo from 2 Christmases ago. Everyone was smiling. None of them knew that within 2 years we'd all be at war. Patricia Trish Donovan scanned the stack of papers laid out on my dining table, her expression serious. At 55, she'd been my lawyer for over 2 decades, handled my contracts, my divorce, everything. This is more than just legal payback, Boyd, she said, tapping the folder with Vince's findings. You're aiming to completely destroy your family's financial stability. I poured us both a scotch. They tore my life apart. They chose Denise and that scam artist over their own. Trish exhaled. The evidence on Trevor is troubling, I'll give you that. But your mom's a grown woman. She can decide what to do with her money, even if she's making bad choices. She's not thinking for herself, none of them are, I told her. So what's the goal here? Trish asked. Leave them broke? Get Trevor locked up? Exactly, I said. They need to pay. I want justice. They need to know betrayal has a cost. Over the next few weeks, I kicked off the first part of the plan like clockwork. I used my old connections in construction to find a piece of land right next to my mum's place, a crumbling mansion nobody wanted because fixing it up would cost a fortune. Through shell companies Trish set up, I bought it without leaving a trace. That place was going to be the center of it all. While I set the stage, Vince kept digging. Turns out Denise and Trevor were already falling apart. They'd been spotted fighting in front of their studio, and the books showed they were losing cash fast. Trevor was funneling money into his personal account. "They'll be desperate for new funding soon," Vince said. "And your family? They'll be the first ones he hits up." I nodded, jotting notes into my leather notebook. "That's exactly what I'm planning on." The next step was making myself look weak. I set up a run-in with my brother Neil at our usual barber. I came in looking rough, messy hair, wrinkled clothes, lost in thought. "You look like hell," Neil said. I sighed, like I was barely holding it together. Life's been throwing curveballs, thinking of heading out west, getting a fresh start. That got his attention fast. "Seriously, what about Callahan Builders?" "Might sell," I muttered. "Too many ghosts here." The rumor spread fast. Within days, I had relatives calling, suddenly concerned. Everyone except my mum, my sister, and Denise. Then Amber showed up. First time she'd visited since the split. At 16, she had Denise's blonde hair, but my piercing blue eyes and jawline. "Is it true? You're leaving Boston?" she asked. Right away, I motioned for her to sit down. "I'm thinking about it." "But your company's here, we're here. You're just walking away." Her voice carried anger. "We," I repeated with a cold laugh. "You mean the family that told me I couldn't come to Thanksgiving unless I stayed quiet? The same family bankrolling your mom's new venture? With her boyfriend?" She looked stung. "That's not fair. Mom and Trevor really care about each other." "Oh, do they?" I asked. "Did she ever say when it started? Or is that just supposed to not matter?" "People change," she said quietly. I leaned in. "Has Trevor been asking you anything? About my company? If I might sell?" The way she paused told me everything I needed to know. He only said that, if I was really planning to sell, he had investors who might want in. "I'll bet he does," I said quietly. "Let Trevor know I'm entertaining all serious offers. In fact, I'm organizing an estate sale next month. Everything goes." After Amber left, I called Trish. They took the bait. Time to move on to phase 2. The estate sale was carefully orchestrated. I sold furniture and artwork from my storage units, but held on to every major asset. I built the perfect picture of a man cashing out before making a huge life change. During the event, I watched my relatives circle the place like scavengers. My mom held Grandpa's pocket watch with wet eyes. Neil examined my collection of rare whiskey. Fiona snapped photos of my antique desk. Denise showed up last with Trevor by her side. She moved through my things like she already owned them, touching everything, judging what it was worth. Trevor headed straight for my office, where I'd conveniently placed some financial papers. Thinking of leaving town, he asked like it was no big deal. I nodded. "Just need a clean slate. Too many bad memories here." "Your family's worried," Trevor said, placing his hand on a file labeled Callahan Builders. "Asset valuation, are they?" I said flatly. Funny way of showing it. That night I got a call from Mom. "Boyd, sweetheart, this rash decision to leave, it's not you. People change, Mom. Getting betrayed'll do that to a guy." Her tone got sharp. "You need to let go of all that resentment. We're having a family dinner next Saturday at my place. I want you there. It's time for this family to move on." "And who exactly is coming to this healing dinner?" I asked, already knowing full well. "Everyone, Neil and his wife, Fiona and Henry, the kids, Denise and Trevor. It's time, Boyd. This family needs closure." I waited a beat. "I'll be there, Mom. You're right. Time for the truth to come out." After I hung up, I turned to the intricate model on my dining table, a detailed replica of Mom's house with every note and measurement labeled. Next to it lay the renovation plans for the estate right next door. Phase 3 kicks off Saturday, I told Vince, who was uploading the latest surveillance images. "Is everything set?" Vince gave a grim nod. "Everything except you. Once this happens, there's no taking it back. They'll never forgive you." My smile was ice. "That's the point. They think they've seen the worst of me. They haven't seen anything yet." Chapter 5. The Web Tightens. The week leading up to the dinner, I sped things up. The mansion beside, my mother's house, was getting a full overhaul. Crews worked non-stop, managed by my most trusted foreman, Miguel Santos, who thought we were prepping for a surprise movie shoot. "The specs are pretty intense, Mr. Callahan," Miguel said, looking over the odd updates to the old ballroom. "This isn't a normal remodel. It's a special setup, Miguel. It all has to go in exactly as planned. I personally oversaw the installation of high-end AV gear, one-way mirrors, and a cutting-edge security system with remote locks. While I carefully built the image of someone barely holding it together, I made sure every move served a purpose. I met with a real estate agent at a well-known lunch spot, one I knew Neil's co-workers often frequented. I went to my doctor complaining of chest pain, knowing her bridge partner, a nurse who chatted with my mum regularly, would make sure that detail got passed along. I even called Liam, sounding distant and on edge, dropping vague hints about big changes in my life. Each move was part of the act, reinforcing the idea that I was falling apart. The more they pitied me, the easier it would be to pull this off. 3 days before the dinner, I asked Trevor to meet me at a high-end bar downtown. He showed up looking sharp, suit perfectly tailored, handshake tight. "Boyd, good to see you," he said, all smooth charm. "Didn't expect your call." I waved the bartender over and ordered 2 whiskeys. "Figured we should talk man to man. You're practically part of the family now." His grin was polite, but his eyes stayed guarded. "I appreciate that. Denise and I never wanted tension." "Of course not," I said, pushing a folder across the counter. "That's why I wanted you to see this first. I'm open to your investment group's interest in Callahan Builders." He looked surprised and then hungry. When he flipped the folder open, he saw inflated financials, numbers cooked up by my team to paint a false picture of rapid growth. "These are impressive," he said, scanning the pages. "Didn't realize you'd gone into commercial in Cambridge." "Recent moves," I replied easily. "Let's keep this between us for now. My family tends to get emotional when it comes to business." He nodded fast. "Absolutely. Discretion's key." We talked for about an hour, with me feeding him, just enough to keep him hooked, all carefully planted lies about our holdings. As we wrapped up, I threw in one last line. "Looking forward to Mom's dinner on Saturday. Good chance to smooth things over." "Denise is nervous," Trevor admitted. "She's worried you'll stir up trouble." I clapped his shoulder. "That's all ancient history. I'm looking ahead now. Actually, I've got a little surprise. An announcement planned for dinner." That was all it took. As I'd hoped, Trevor picked up his phone the second I left. Thanks to Vince's surveillance setup, I listened in as he called Denise. "He's selling the company," Trevor said, voice brimming with excitement. "It's worth way more than we thought, and he said he's making some kind of announcement at Dorothy's dinner." "What kind of announcement?" Denise asked, wary. "He didn't say," Trevor replied, "but something's changed. He's quiet, like he's given up." "Boyd doesn't give up," she said flatly. "He's up to something." "You're being paranoid," Trevor told her. "He's broken, selling off what's left and moving on. This is our shot." I let the recording finish and smiled. Denise still had sharper instincts than the rest. She knew I wasn't done, but even she couldn't guess what I was really setting in motion. The day before the dinner, I met with Trish to lock in the legal framework for what was coming. "These documents are legally binding," Trish cautioned, pushing the thick folder across her polished desk. "Once signed, the financial fallout for your family will be significant." "They made their bed," I said as I signed each document with firm strokes. "Now they can deal with the consequences." "And your kids?" Trish asked in a quieter tone. "Liam and Amber don't deserve this." I froze, pen hovering just above the final page. No one's blameless. They picked a side. Even my own kids bought into Denise's lies. Saturday morning was crisp and clear. I got dressed carefully in a charcoal grey suit that fit like it was made for me, because it was. Tucked in my breast pocket was a small remote Vince's tech guys had built just for me. I got to my mother's house a full 30 minutes ahead of schedule. She opened the door herself, clearly surprised. "You're early, Boyd. I thought we might have a moment alone before the others show up," she said as I kissed her cheek. Her perfume hit me like a wave, almost enough to shake my resolve. This was the woman who once kissed my bruises and cheered my wins. But she also threw me aside for some scam artist's slick talk. Inside her elegant living room, I accepted a glass of sherry. "Still beautiful as ever, Mum. Your taste has always been flawless." Dorothy gave me a long look. "You're different today." "I've come to terms with some things," I said, watching the amber liquid swirl. "Life's too short to hang on to resentment." Her face softened. "I'm so glad to hear that. This rift has been tearing our family apart." "I agree," I said. "Family matters most. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you first. I've made some choices about my future, about the company." She leaned in, her eyes lighting up. "Trevor said something about you maybe selling. Is that true?" Just hearing his name tied to my business told me all I needed. I forced a polite smile. "I've been weighing my options. Actually, I bought a place nearby, just next door, actually. The old Harrington property." Dorothy's brows lifted. "That place is falling apart." "Not anymore," I said, keeping my tone mysterious. "I've done a little work on it. I was thinking of hosting dinner there tonight. Clean slate, neutral ground. But everyone's planning to eat here," she hesitated. "It'd mean a lot to me, Mom," I said, letting just the right amount of vulnerability show. "It's a way for me to prove I'm heading in a better direction." She thought for a second, then nodded. "Okay, maybe a new setting will change the mood." When the family showed up, she broke the news about the change of venue. Neil and Fiona shared a skeptical look, but agreed to follow along in their cars. Denise arrived with Trevor, stiff and guarded, despite her polished appearance. Liam and Amber showed up separately, both looking uneasy. I led the way to the house next door, where a line of uniformed staff stood ready at the grand entry. The inside had gone from abandoned wreck to a palace. Crystal chandeliers lit up marble floors, and fine art lined the walls like a gallery. "Holy hell, Boyd," Neil muttered as he stepped inside. "You pulled this off in 4 weeks." "Money helps," I answered calmly, and I had more than enough reason. He led them into the ballroom, where a long table was laid out with elegant china and sparkling glassware. Each seat had a place card, carefully arranged by Boyd to position every family member precisely where he wanted. As they settled in, Boyd remained on his feet. "Before we start dinner, I'd like to offer a toast," he announced, lifting his glass of champagne. "To family and to truth." The others raised their glasses hesitantly, while Boyd discreetly pressed the remote hidden in his pocket. Around the house, locks clicked into place, and security shutters slid over every window without a sound. The trap had sprung. "What was that noise?" Fiona asked, her eyes darting. Boyd's smile widened. "That, dear sister, was the sound of accountability." Chapter 6. The Unmasking. Silence settled like a curtain over the grand room as Boyd gently set his flute down on the table, its delicate ring echoing in the stillness. "What do you mean by accountability?" Neil asked, starting to rise from his seat. Boyd motioned for everyone to stay seated. "Please enjoy your starters. We've got a long evening ahead." With controlled calm, he pressed a second button on his remote. The lights dimmed, and a projector lowered from the ceiling. On the wall behind him, a family photo appeared, the same Christmas picture he had centered his war room around. 2 years ago, Boyd began, his tone even, "we were still a family. Not perfect, but whole. Tonight we look at what changed." Denise shifted in her seat, clearly uneasy. "Boyd, if this is some kind of ambush—" "Patience, Denise," Boyd interrupted. "Your role in this will become clear soon enough." The image changed to a display of financial statements. "Let's start with the numbers. Neil, you borrowed $300,000 against your home. Fiona, you pulled $150,000 from your 401k. Mom, you revised your will and made Trevor co-trustee of your trust fund." The group exchanged stunned looks. "Where did you get this information?" Neil demanded. "That's what bothers you?" Boyd shot back. "Not the fact that you gambled your kid's future on a sinking company." "Porter Designs isn't failing," Denise said sharply. Boyd switched to the next slide showing spreadsheets. Outstanding debt, $427,000. Last quarter's revenue, $42,000. At this pace, you'll be broke in half a year. Trevor shot to his feet. "This is confidential business. You had no right—" "Sit down, Trevor. Or should I say, Trevor Wilson." The blood drained from Trevor's face. Behind him, headlines and articles appeared exposing old financial scandals in Florida from 2006. You changed your identity after multiple SEC complaints. No charges, but you skipped town under suspicion. New name, new zip code, same game. Dorothy turned toward Trevor, her expression horrified. Is that true? Trevor forced out a laugh. That's ancient history. Twisted around. Boyd's just bitter Denise left him for me. Did she? Boyd asked in a low voice. He clicked again, revealing direct messages between Trevor and Denise from 4 years prior. Your affair didn't start after the marriage broke down. It started before. It broke the marriage. The room reacted in shock. Amber turned toward her mum, realization setting in. Mum, 4 years ago I was 12. Denise's facade crumbled. It's not what it looks like. We were just friends. Boyd showed more messages, ones filled with crude jokes and plans to maximize a divorce payout. Those friends laughed about how naive I was. Liam shot up, face red with rage. Enough! Stop it! Sit down, son, Boyd said, his tone softening but steady. I understand how hard this is, but it has to be done. All of you made your choices before knowing the truth. Now you're going to hear it. The slideshow kept going, unforgiving. I laid out how Trevor had been funneling money from Porter Designs into offshore accounts under his name. I showed the paperwork, proving he convinced Dorothy to throw her savings into high-risk investments that padded his commissions while draining her account. With every new piece of evidence, their faces shifted, from denial to horror to shame. Trevor's defenses became more frantic with each passing minute. Denise sat frozen, silent, mascara running down her face. Why are you doing this? Fiona finally asked, her voice barely audible. I stared at my sister, my voice cold. You wanted me to share Thanksgiving with the people who tore my life apart and just sit there like nothing happened. You picked Denise and her scam artist over your own brother. All of you did. I turned to Mum. You were rewriting your will to give Grandpa's lake house to the woman who betrayed me, the place where I spent every summer as a kid. The one I rebuilt. With my bare hands. Dorothy's face collapsed. I didn't know about Trevor's background. I thought I was helping hold the family together. By cutting me out, I asked, my tone sharp. By turning me into the villain in a story full of lies. Neil jumped up, face flushed. Fine, you've made your point. We were deceived, we messed up, now open the doors and let us go. I gave him a cold smile. We're not done. We haven't even talked about what happens next. I clicked to a new slide, one filled with legal filings and ownership diagrams. While you were also busy betraying me, I was working too. Neil, remember asking me to add you as a signatory to the Callahan Family Trust last year? You signed a bunch of paperwork. His face changed from puzzled to horrified. What did you do? You handed over your shares in Neil Callahan Architects to a holding company I now control. That means I own 51% of your firm. Neil stumbled back, stunned. That's not possible. That's fraud. Nope, I said. Trish confirmed. Everything's airtight. You just didn't bother to read the fine print. I turned to Fiona. And you, sis, remember our joint venture to buy those Somerville rentals? You gave me power of attorney when you went to Europe last spring. I paused. I restructured the deal. Your stake's now just 5%. Her face went pale. Those rentals were my retirement. Maybe you should have thought of that before taking Denise's side, I said flatly. Then I faced Mum. Dorothy lifted a shaky hand. Please, Boyd, that's enough. The Brooklyn place, the Cape Cod cottage, and yes, the lake house in New Hampshire. They're all part of an irrevocable trust now. I'm the trustee. You can live in them for life, but you can't sell them or leave them to anyone without my say-so. The room went dead silent. Liam turned to me, eyes wide, torn between fear and something else. Dad, you destroyed everyone. Sure, here's your rewritten version, following all your instructions strictly. Same length, American cultural tone, first-person perspective, no added or removed content, and a natural rewrite. Not ruined, son. Informed. I finally took my seat at the head of the table. So how about dinner? The chefs put together a fantastic spread. That's when Trevor lunged across the table, grabbing my collar. You arrogant jerk. You think this is over? I'll bury you in court. I didn't even Blink, with what funds, Trevor? Your assets were frozen earlier today. The FBI is already tracing the money you funneled out of my family's company. Securities fraud doesn't end with a slap on the wrist. Right on cue, the doors to the dining room swung open. 2 agents stepped in, flashing their badges. Trevor, Wilson, we need to speak with you regarding the financial operations of Porter Design. The timing couldn't have been more precise. I'd arranged for the Financial Crimes Division to show up right then, using evidence Vince had quietly sent over weeks ago. As the agents led Trevor out, Denise turned on me, tears streaking her face in rage. You orchestrated all of this. You wanted Trevor to take the blame. Trevor made his own mess by stealing from a company backed by my family. I just made sure the truth came to light. I looked around at the faces of my fractured family. Every one of you made a decision. You picked Denise's manipulations over family loyalty. You trusted a con artist's charm over decades of earned trust. Now you live with that. Liam rose, his face twisted with pain. Dad, come on. No matter what they did, they're still our family. We can fix this. I looked at him, my son, the only one I still had a sliver of care for. Some betrayals don't come back from Liam. Some lessons only come with pain. I hit the remote again, and all the mansion's locks clicked open. You're all free to leave. The legal files outlining your new financial situations have been emailed. I suggest you find legal counsel. Just not Trish. She's on my payroll now. As they drifted out in shock, Dorothy lingered. Her hand shook as she touched my cheek. I failed you as a mother. I see that now. For just a second, my resolve cracked. But I remembered sitting alone that Thanksgiving, while they laughed with my wife and her boyfriend. Yes, I said, you did. When the last door shut behind them, I stayed seated in the ballroom and let the satisfaction wash over me. Phase 3 was done. They were exposed and paid the price, but I wasn't finished. I still had to make sure they'd never recover from tonight. I pulled out my phone and made the call. Vince launched the final step. All across the city, the data dropped, emails, files, and videos sent to reporters, business partners, and social feeds. By sunrise, the Callahans' public disgrace was irreversible. Chapter 7. Ashes of the Past. That Sunday, Boston's Upper Crust buzzed with gossip about the Callahan family's dramatic downfall. By Monday, gossip turned to headlines. The Boston Globe's business section spotlighted Trevor Wilson's shady financial history and an ongoing FBI probe. Social media flooded with clips from my dinner expose, leaked with precision, timed to hit hardest. I sat in my apartment downtown, watching the chaos on multiple monitors, emotionless. Vince handed me coffee as we reviewed the damage. Trevor's being held without bail, he reported. The FBI uncovered tax evasion along with securities fraud. He's facing hard time. I nodded, eyes flicking across news updates. Denise is holed up at her sister's place in Wellesley. Porter Design's office got padlocked for unpaid rent. Her credit cards are bouncing. A cold, tight smile crept across my face. My mother, Dorothy, hasn't stepped outside since Saturday. Her housekeeper says she won't take calls or see anyone. I shifted focus to another screen, security footage of Neil shouting outside his architecture firm. And Neil? His partners called an emergency meeting when they found out I control his shares now. They're debating whether to buy him out or push him out. Everything was unraveling exactly how I'd designed it. Every betrayal paid back in full. Those who funded Denise's affair, financially ruined. Those who mocked me on Thanksgiving, dragged into the spotlight. My phone rang. 5th time that morning. Liam again. I picked up. Dad? His voice cracked. He'd clearly been crying. Everything's a mess. Mom's falling apart. Grandma won't get out of bed. Uncle Neil could lose his business. You have to help. Why would I said, steady. Because they're family, Liam pleaded. Whatever they did, this is too much. Is it? I asked. They let me lose everything. My wife, my home, my place in the family. They backed Denise, bankrolled her new life with Trevor, and cut me out. They called it healing. Now they're the ones bleeding. Liam's voice dropped to almost nothing. What about Amber and me? We didn't do anything. We're just collateral in your war. For a second I hesitated. Denise had poisoned them against me. Yes, but they were still just kids. Maybe I'd gone too far. The flicker of doubt vanished when I remembered Amber's Instagram post with Trevor. Almost becoming Liam's stepdad used to be a point of pride. But now, during every family event where I'm kept out, Liam just sits there in silence. I finally told him, "You both made choices too. Actions have consequences, son. That's the lesson here." His voice was flat when he asked, "So what happens now?" I didn't flinch. "Now you all live with the new reality. Your mother can get a job like anyone else. Neil and Fiona can figure out how to handle their financial losses. And you, and Amber, you can decide what kind of relationship you want with me, if any." After hanging up, I looked out over the city skyline. Months of planning had led to this. The revenge I'd so carefully crafted was rolling out exactly as I envisioned. But the feeling was empty. I thought I'd feel victorious. Instead, I felt nothing. The doorbell rang. I checked the monitor. Amber stood in the hallway, tears streaking her face. I hesitated, then hit the buzzer. She flew in, all the teenage armor gone. "How could you?" she cried, her voice shaking. "Grandma's devastated. She might lose her house." I stayed calm. "She won't lose her house. I designed the trust so she could live there for life. She just can't sell it or pass it on without my approval." "Like that makes it better," Amber shot back, voice rising. "Mom's bank accounts are frozen. We can't even buy groceries." I walked to the safe, opened it, and took out an envelope, $5,000 in cash. "Enough to cover the essentials. Your mother can reach out to discuss a monthly allowance until she finds work." Amber looked at the envelope, then slapped it from my hand. The money scattered to the floor. "We don't want your blood money," she snapped. "We want our family back." I kept my voice level. "The family betrayed me. They took sides without knowing the facts. Now they're facing the fallout. Then punish Mom and Trevor. Go after Uncle Neil and Aunt Fiona if you have to. But Grandma, she's 76, this could kill her." Something tightened in my chest, but I didn't show it. "She'll be fine. Callahans are tough." Amber stared at me like I was a stranger. "I don't even recognize you. The dad I knew wouldn't burn everything down just to get even." I met her eyes. "The father you knew died the day his family backed a cheating wife. This is who I am now. Take the money or don't. It's your choice." When she left, I poured a scotch and returned to the window. The city moved along, unaware of the mess unraveling in the Callahan family. For the first time, I felt a flicker of doubt. Maybe I had taken it too far. Amber's face haunted me. Not angry, not scared, just disappointed, like she didn't admire me anymore. I shoved the thought down. I'd lost everything once by being soft. I wouldn't make that mistake again. The plan was still in motion. That night, the next step played out at the private Suffolk Club. I made sure I was seated near Maxwell Porter, Denise's older brother. He'd flown in from Chicago to support her. When we crossed paths at the bar, Max barely nodded. Boyd. At 60, he still had the same chiseled presence, a top-tier surgeon with his sister's golden looks. "Max," Boyd answered coolly, "just here to clean up the mess." Max clenched his jaw. "You've made your point, Boyd. Denise messed up. Trevor played everyone, but tearing the whole family apart, that's cruel." Boyd took a sip of his drink. "Your sister didn't just cheat, Max. She and Trevor deliberately cut me off from everyone, made me look unstable and unreliable, then used our family's money to start their new life. That's not a slip-up. That's a deliberate betrayal." "So now what?" Max asked. "Denise has nothing left. The kids are a mess. You call this justice?" "Justice is just the start," Boyd said. "I've had Trish put together terms for Denise's financial support. She'll get a monthly payment if she agrees to some conditions." "What conditions?" Max asked warily. "1, she leaves Boston for good. 2, she never reaches out to my mom or siblings again. 3, she hands over her share of the Brooklyn house to me." Max's expression darkened. "You're kicking her out of her home, out of her family. She wrecked mine and turned everyone against me," Boyd said flatly. "This is me being generous." She could be charged for helping Trevor with his fraud. The threat lingered in the air. They both knew Boyd had enough proof to get Denise wrapped up in Trevor's crimes if he really wanted to. Max finished his drink. "I'll let her know your terms, but listen, Boyd. You may have won this round, but at what price? One day when you're old and by yourself, remember this was your doing. Boyd watched him walk away, unfazed. He'd take loneliness over betrayal, any day. He'd already survived worse, nothing could touch him now. That night, Boyd got a call he didn't expect. Boyd. His mom's voice sounded frail, older than he remembered. I need to see you. I'm busy, Mom, he said, ice cold. Please, I'm not asking you to forgive me, but there are things I need to say in person. You deserve to hear them. Against his better judgment, he agreed to come by in the morning. Her house in Brookline, once full of life and family dinners, felt like a tomb. Curtains drawn, shadows everywhere. Dorothy looked small, far from the polished woman he grew up with. Wrinkled shirt, messy hair. You look awful, Boyd said. Haven't been sleeping, she admitted, motioning him toward the living room. Guilt's a pretty good insomnia cure. They sat stiffly across from each other. Boyd noticed her hands shaking. I talked to Maxine Duval yesterday, she said after a moment. Boyd raised an eyebrow. Maxine had handled Denise's divorce. Why? I needed legal advice, and she told me something. That stuck. Dorothy looked straight at him. She said Denise wanted a fair deal at first. Equal assets, shared custody. Trevor pushed her to go nuclear. Boyd scoffed. And you bought that? Denise had chances to walk away from it. Sure, she did. We all had choices, Dorothy said, her voice firming up. I'm not defending any of us, Boyd. I'm just trying to understand how I failed so badly as your mother. I believed Denise. I let her lover into our family. I even changed my will for the woman who helped ruin your marriage. Dorothy nodded slowly, taking in every word. Yes, all of it. But the worst part was forgetting who you are. You built everything. From scratch. You held us together through every crisis. You fixed this house when we were broke. Tears ran quietly down her cheeks. How could I forget all that? For some smooth-talking advisor who just showed up. What kind of mother does that? To her own son? Her voice cracked and something in Boyd broke. For just a moment he didn't see his betrayer. He saw his mother. Betrayer, not just anyone, but my own mother. The woman who stayed up through my childhood fevers, who cheered me on when the world doubted me. But that moment passed. I buried the emotion. I wouldn't let her tears sway me. It doesn't matter anymore. What's done is done. Will you ever forgive me? She whispered. I stood up. No, Mom, I won't. Trust once broken can't be fixed. You chose Denise over me. Now you'll have neither of us. As I headed for the door, she called after me. I've always been proud of you, Boyd. Even now, as you punish us all, I see how brilliant you are. You're just like your father, relentless when wronged. I paused, didn't look back. Dad had been gone 2 decades, but her words hit hard. Malcolm Callahan had been ruthless, obsessed with precision, and never forgave betrayal. I'd spent years trying not to turn into him. And yet here I was, tearing down the family piece by piece in the name of vengeance. For a second, uncertainty crept in. Then I remembered that Thanksgiving, alone, in my silent apartment, while they laughed, around Denise and Trevor. Goodbye, Mother, I said, and shut the door. Chapter 8. Scorched Earth. 3 weeks after the disaster dinner, I sat in Trish's office reviewing the damage. Even I hadn't expected the fallout to be this complete. Trevor was still in federal custody. No bail, flight risk. Neil's firm had dumped him, buying his shares for next to nothing. Fiona had put her Beacon Hill home on the market to cover what she lost. Denise's attorney signed, Trish said, sliding the papers over. A monthly payment, in return for staying away. From me and the rest of them, I nodded. Where's she going? Chicago, near her brother. She has to stay 500 meters clear of Boston and the Brooklyn property. She gave up her share. It's yours now, completely. I flipped through the pages. I didn't feel anything. No rush of victory, no anger, no peace. Just blank. What about the kids, she asked. What about them? Liam's a senior, Amber's 16. This turned their world upside down. My jaw tightened. Liam texts sometimes. Amber's ghosted me since our fight. Trish leaned in, concern replacing her usual distance. I've been your attorney and your friend for 20 years. I've stood by your right to take back what was stolen, But Boyd, the kids aren't the enemy. No one's innocent, I said. They picked a side. They're kids. They believe their mother. That's not a crime. I stuffed the contract into my briefcase. Are we done here? She let out a breath. Legally, yes, but Boyd, when all this revenge is over, when you've punished everyone who crossed you, what will you have left? Her question followed me as I drove to the Brooklyn house, the one where I'd once raised my family. I walked through the front doors, into silence. Everywhere I looked, memories struck like punches. Liam's first steps on those hardwood floors, Amber sliding down the railing even after I warned her not to, Denise placing ornaments on the huge tree in the front window. I wandered from room to room, taking note of what needed fixing, planning what I'd change. The master bedroom, the very place Denise had cheated with Trevor, was going to be completely torn apart. My kids' rooms were set to become guest suites. Every last reminder of the family that once lived here was going to disappear. In Amber's room, old stuffed animals still sat on the window seat. A dusty science fair trophy rested on the bookshelf. Her bulletin board still had crooked family photos pinned up. Me helping Amber ride her bike. All four of us smiling on a ski trip in Vermont. Me carrying her on my shoulders at a Red Sox game. For the first time since putting my revenge into motion, something cracked deep inside the wall I'd built around my emotions. These weren't just leftover pieces from a failed marriage. They were fragments of my children's lives, lives that I had damaged chasing retribution. My phone rang, snapping me out of it. It was Vince. Boyd, we've got a problem. Neil tried to take his own life last night. The world seemed to stop spinning. Is he... He's alive. Pills and booze. His wife found him in time. He left a note, said he couldn't face the shame of going broke and the hit to his reputation. I sat down hard on Amber's bed. The stuffed animals looked on like tiny witnesses to my disbelief. Where is he now? Boston General, on a psych hold. After the call ended, I just sat there, staring at an old photo on her nightstand. Neil and I, as kids, arms draped over each other's shoulders, beaming after reeling in our first fish at the lake house. We used to be inseparable. Then my phone rang again. It was Liam. Dad, his voice cracked. Did you hear about Uncle Neil? Just now. This has to stop, he said, almost begging. Uncle Neil nearly died. Grandma's getting worse. Mom's leaving for Chicago. This family is falling apart. The family fell apart when everyone chose Denise, I said automatically, but even I didn't believe it anymore. So, what's your goal here? Liam shot back, voice breaking. When will it be enough? When Uncle Neil actually dies? When Grandma passes from heartbreak? Will that finally make it all worth it? His question hit me like a gut punch. What was my goal? I had wanted them to feel pain, to suffer like I had, and I'd made that happen. More than I ever thought. I could, but I still felt empty. There was no satisfaction. I don't know, I finally admitted. It was the first moment of doubt in the plan I had executed so flawlessly. Then figure it out, Liam said, his voice like ice, because while you're tearing down the people who hurt you, you're wrecking yourself too. The dad I used, to know would have never let revenge eat him alive. After the call ended, I walked the halls of a house that once echoed with laughter. My revenge had been precise, devastating, and total. I'd taken back everything they tried to steal. I'd made them pay. But standing in the shell of what used to be my home, I saw the truth. I'd won every fight, yet I'd lost something far more important. The hole inside me wasn't going to be filled by anyone's suffering. That night I drove to Boston General. Neil was alone in a private room, hooked to monitors, his wife asleep nearby in a chair. I stood in the doorway, staring at his pale face against the sterile sheets. He opened his eyes and didn't even flinch when he saw me. Are you here to gloat? He asked, voice raspy. No, I said softly. Then why are you here? I stepped inside, unsure. I don't know. Neil gave a dry, bitter laugh that ended in a cough. Boyd Callahan doesn't know something. Stop the presses. I never wanted this, I said, motioning to the hospital room around him. What did you want? To torch everything I worked for? To publicly shame me? To push me so far I'd want to end it all? Congrats. You almost pulled off the triple hit. I sat across from Susan in the chair. I wanted you to know what it's like to lose it all, to be betrayed by the people you believed in. Neil kept his eyes on me. So, did it work? You feel better? Now that I've lost my job, my name, and came this close to dying? No, I said. I feel nothing. Nothing. After pulling off your flawless revenge plan? Neil slowly shook his head. That's the thing about getting even, Boyd. It promises satisfaction but leaves you empty. Dad showed us that. I did remember, after. A partner screwed him over. Malcolm Callahan had completely torn the man's life apart. Professionally and personally. But that win left him bitter and alone at the end. I'm not sorry I trusted Denise, Neil went on. She was family for 26 years. She was convincing. And you weren't around to speak up. You cut us off, because you all turned your backs on me. We didn't know what was going on, Neil said, voice low. We messed up, Boyd. We really did. But what you did, it doesn't match what we did wrong. I stood up, quick. I should go. Hold on. Neil called as I reached the door. What now? Are we all just supposed to keep hurting until you say we've paid enough? Does this revenge even have an endpoint? I stopped. Honestly, I didn't know. I'd spent months planning every move, but never thought about the after. Was there even a way back once you've burned everything down? Was there anything left to save? I don't know, I finally said, then walked out, leaving him alone with the beeping machines and the sharp hospital smell of almost dying. Chapter 9. No room for mercy. 1 month after Neil tried to end his life, I stood in the living room of the Brookline house. It was completely redone. The walls were gone, open concept now. Dark wood floors replaced with pale bamboo, thick curtains swapped out for clean-lined blinds. Nothing remained of the home we'd shared. I looked around, judging my work. The renovation felt cleansing, each teardown a betrayal cut away, each new piece a mark of the life I was rebuilding alone. My phone buzzed with a message from Trish. Meeting with Dorothy's lawyer set for tomorrow at 10 ICU. You sure you want this? I texted back. Absolutely. I was almost at the end. Dorothy had tried to change the terms of her trust, wanting to make sure Liam and Amber would one day get the lake house. I let her think I was coming around, that maybe I'd meet her halfway. Tomorrow I'd let her know she was wrong. Then my phone rang. It was Amber. I froze. The last time we talked, she stormed off saying she never wanted to see me again. I answered. Hello, Amber, Dad. Her voice came through small without her usual edge. I need to talk to you. I'm asking face to face, please. This matters. Even though part of me told me not to, I agreed to meet her at a cafe near her campus. When I walked in, Amber was already tucked into a booth in the back, looking younger than 16. Her blonde hair was tied back in a plain ponytail, her face bare. You said you wanted to talk, I said after ordering a coffee. She drew in a slow breath. I'm not going to Chicago with Mum. That caught me off guard. Where would you stay? With you, she said, locking eyes with me. At the house in Brooklyn. That's where I belong. I studied her, face carefully, trying to figure out if this was manipulation or something deeper. Why now? Last time we talked, you didn't even want to be near me. Her expression wavered. Because I was hurt. I was terrified. You blew our whole family apart. Mum was losing it. Grandma was heartbroken, and Uncle Neil... She couldn't finish the sentence. I pressed gently. And now? Now I see things differently, she said, her voice soft. Mum finally told me everything, about how the affair started long before she admitted, about how she and Trevor planned the divorce to milk as much as they could, about how they turned everyone against you. Cold satisfaction crept in. I hadn't expected Denise to come clean. She didn't mean to tell me, Amber added, noticing my face. I was helping her pack and found some texts. I confronted her. She broke down. She said she messed everything up, our whole lives. And that's why you're changing your mind? I asked. Her eyes glistened. I'm changing my mind because you're the only one who told the truth. Mom lied, Grandma lied. Everyone lied or spun things or covered things up. You were harsh, but you never lied. That shook me. I'd braced myself for anger, for blame, even for hatred. but not that level of clarity. "The house is different now," I told her. "Everything's been redone. Your room isn't there anymore." "I know. Liam told me," she said with a shrug. "Doesn't matter. It's still home, ours." For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something other than bitterness or fury, a thin thread of connection to the girl I'd raised for 16 years. It wasn't forgiveness. She'd made that clear. But maybe it was a kind of understanding. "I'll think it over," I said at last. That night, I met Vince at a low-key bar downtown to go over the final moves in my plan. "Neil gets out of the psych center tomorrow," Vince told me. "Fiona sold her townhouse at a huge loss, and Dorothy's been in talks with 3 estate lawyers." I nodded, absorbing it all. "What about Denise?" "Movers come next week. Most of the old furniture's been donated. Her brother's credit card shows she's flying one way to Chicago next Thursday." Everything was unfolding just the way I had orchestrated. Those who betrayed me had paid the price. What was mine had been restored. I had reasserted control. So why did it all feel hollow? "One more thing," Vince said, pushing a folder across the desk. "Liam applied early. Decision to Boston College's business program." I flipped open the folder and stared at the essay on top. The title page read, "The Legacy of Callahan Builders, Why I Want to Follow My Father's Footsteps." "Where'd you get this?" I asked, my voice suddenly rough. "I've got contacts in admissions," Vince said. "Read it. The kid looks up to you, Boyd, even after all this." That night, alone in my high-rise apartment, I read Liam's essay. Then I read it again and again. He wrote beautifully about what it meant to grow up watching me build a construction company from nothing, about what I taught him, about integrity, work ethic, ambition. "My father taught me that a man's word is his bond," Liam had written. "That quality work speaks for itself. That family is the foundation upon which everything else is built." My hands shook a little as I closed the folder. He had written those words before everything collapsed, before I'd torn our family apart in pursuit of justice. Would he still say those things now? The next morning, I walked into Trish's office for the meeting with Dorothy's lawyer. My mother sat stiffly in a guest chair, dressed as immaculately as ever, though her face showed signs of wear. "Boy," she said, curt and cold. "Mother." Trish exchanged an awkward glance with Dorothy's lawyer, a silver-haired man named Richard Pembroke. "Shall we begin?" Trish said. "Mrs. Callahan would like to request changes to the irrevocable trust regarding her real estate." Pembroke cleared his throat. "My client wants to protect her grandchildren's future inheritance. She accepts the terms granting her lifetime use of the properties, but she requests that the lake house specifically go to Liam and Amber after her death." I listened without expression. This was exactly the moment I'd anticipated, the last calculated blow. Dorothy had loved that lake house more than anything. The idea that it would go to the grandchildren had been her only comfort in this deal. "I've reviewed the request," I said evenly. "My answer is no. The trust remains unchanged. Upon Dorothy's passing, all properties revert to me to manage or sell as I see fit." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if absorbing the impact. "So this is your final revenge," she said quietly. "Taking away my peace of mind about the children's future." "You were planning to leave the lake house to Denise," I reminded her, my voice cold. "You made your choice, not me." "Yes," she said, lifting her chin and meeting my eyes. "And choices have consequences. Your dad realized it too late. His need for revenge ate away at him until there was nothing left but bitterness. In the end, he regretted it all. 'I won the battle but lost my soul,' he told me. Is that what you want, Boyd, to end up just like him?" That hit me hard. I'd spent my whole life trying to avoid becoming the man he was, emotionally shut off, obsessed with winning no matter the cost. But now here I was tearing apart my own family just to execute the perfect payback. For a second I hesitated. Then I locked it all down again. The trust stays the same. We're done here. As Dorothy got up and grabbed her purse, she slid an envelope across the table. "Liam wanted me to give you this. Whatever you think of me, whatever you're planning, just remember, your kids deserve more than to inherit this bitterness." When they were gone, I opened the envelope. It was a formal invitation. Boston College's Business Administration Department was hosting a reception for early decision applicants and their families on December 15th at 7 p.m. At the bottom, in Liam's handwriting, it read, "I'd really like you to be there. Dad, whatever's happened with the rest of them, I'm still your son. I still want to follow in your footsteps." I sat there alone in Trish's conference room, holding that card. Dorothy's words about my father echoed in my mind. I'd pulled off the perfect revenge. Everyone who'd betrayed me had paid. I'd taken back everything they'd stolen, and I'd proved my power. But somehow none of it felt like a win. Sitting there with the pieces of it all, I saw it clearly. I'd become the one man I'd always sworn I wouldn't. My father, alone, bitter, respected, but unloved. 2 days later, I showed up at the Boston College reception by myself. The room buzzed with excited students and proud parents. I spotted Liam across the way, looking sharp in a new suit, chatting with a professor. He saw me and paused, then made his way over. "Dad, you actually came. You invited me," I answered. We stood there awkwardly, surrounded by laughter and camera flashes. "So, have you made a decision about Amber?" Liam asked. "She can move in next week," I said. "I've already started fixing up her room." His whole face changed. "Thanks, she really needs something steady right now." I glanced around. Other families were smiling, teasing, celebrating, just being normal. The difference between them and us was hard to miss. "Is your mum here?" I asked, scanning the room. Liam shook his head. She thought it'd be too uncomfortable. "She's flying to Chicago tomorrow." I gave a short nod, not letting it show how much it pleased me to hear that Denise was leaving. And Grandma wanted to come too, but Liam paused. "She's not doing great, Dad. All the stress has been rough on her health. Uncle Neil is staying with her for the time being." That news should have made me feel satisfied, more proof that my payback had landed where I wanted. But instead, all I felt was this strange hollowness, like the win had cost me more than I ever meant to spend. "I read your essay," I said suddenly, "the one about following in my footsteps." Liam didn't look at me. "I wrote that before everything happened." "But did you mean it?" I asked. "About wanting to be part of the business one day." "I did back then," he said honestly. "Now I'm not so sure the Dad I wrote about believed in family above everything. The man you've become," he trailed off. The words landed harder than I expected. I'd been so wrapped up in settling scores that I lost sight of the very principles I once tried to teach my kids. "What if," I started, then faltered. "What if that version of me is still in there somewhere? Buried maybe, but not gone." Liam studied me closely. "Does he? Because the man I've watched these last few months seems eaten up by revenge. You've taken down everyone who crossed you, including your own mother. Is that the legacy you want to leave behind?" The question cut clean through me. Before I could respond, Arden called the room to order and started the ceremony. "I should get back to my group," Liam said, turning to go. "Liam," I called out, "I'm proud of you. No matter what happens with us, never forget that." He gave a single nod and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me with thoughts I'd been running from for far too long. That Sunday, I drove to Mom's place in Brookline. She answered the door herself, eyes wide with surprise. "Boyd, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said. In the living room, I turned down her offer for coffee or tea. "This isn't a social visit. I've been thinking about what you said," I began. "About Dad, about how I'm becoming him." Mom sat quietly, hands folded in her lap. "I'm not changing the trust," I went on. "The properties stay under my control. But I've told Trish to add a clause. After you're gone, the lake house goes to Liam and Amber equally." Her face softened with relief. "Thank you, Boyd." "I'm not doing it for you," I said flatly. "It's for my kids. They shouldn't lose what's theirs because of the poor choices their grandmother made." Mom took the sting without blinking. "And Neil and Fiona, are you still going after them?" "Neil's firm stays partially under my ownership. Fiona's real estate assets too. I'm not giving up that leverage." "So the revenge lives on," she said quietly. "It's not revenge anymore," I told her. "It's protection. I won't let them burn me again." "And me?" she asked. What kind of protection do you need from your old mother? I looked her dead in the eyes. You chose Denise over me. You were rewriting your will for the woman who wrecked my marriage. When trust breaks, it doesn't fully come back. Her eyes welled up. So, no forgiveness? No reconciliation? No, I said, my voice like stone. You made your call. These are the consequences. As I stood to leave, she asked one last question. If Liam or Amber ever did something to betray me, would I shut them out just as harshly? Would I judge them as unforgivingly? The question hit me harder than I expected. Would I? Could I really hold my own kids to the same brutal standard? They're different, I finally said. They're my kids. And I'm your mother, Dorothy answered plainly. Still, here we are. That quiet truth followed me as I drove to meet Amber at the house in Brookline. She was already waiting on the porch, a lone suitcase at her feet. That all you're bringing? I asked, taking the handle from her. Most of it's packed for Chicago already, she said. Mom said I can ship the rest once I get settled. I guided her through the newly redone house, watching her face as she took in the stripped-down modern layout. She didn't say much, just scanned the place silently, registering that every trace of our old family life had been wiped away. Your room's upstairs, I said. First door on the right. I kept it simple. You can make it your own. Amber just gave a nod and headed up the stairs. The room I'd set up for her was as basic as it gets. White walls, plain furniture, none of the character or personal touches she'd had before. It's fine, she said, voice flat. It's just a room. For the first time, regret pricked at me. In trying to bury the past, I'd stripped the house of the warmth that once made it feel like home. We can change anything you want, I offered. She sat down at the edge of the bed. Why are you really letting me live here, Dad? She asked. Because you're my daughter, I replied, and Mom's grandma's daughter. Uncle Neil's her son. Didn't stop you from cutting them out. Her words hit deeper than she probably knew. It echoed Dorothy's question exactly. That's different, I said. Is it? She asked. Or is it just different because I haven't done anything to hurt you yet? What happens when I do? Are you going to cut me off too? I didn't have an answer. The black and white judgment I'd clung to didn't stand up against my daughter's quiet question. That night, I sat alone in my study. Amber was upstairs, asleep. The house didn't feel like a shrine to revenge anymore. It felt like a place where something had been lost. My phone buzzed. Liam had texted. Amber settled in. Okay, yeah, I replied. Room needs work, but she's here. Good. Mom left for Chicago today. No one saw her off. That news should have felt like closure. Denise leaving alone, no family left to manipulate. Instead, I felt hollow. Grandma asked about you, Liam wrote next. Said she hopes you'll call her someday. I didn't reply. Some bridges don't get rebuilt. Some betrayals go too deep. I'd made my choices just like they had. In the months that followed, I stayed distant from my mother, my brother, and my sister. The financial walls I'd built stayed in place, making sure they couldn't get close enough to cause more damage. Trevor's securities fraud case went to trial, and I gave the prosecutors everything they needed. Denise stayed in Chicago, living off the stipend I provided, as long as she stayed out of Boston and away from the family. Amber started to get used to life here. There was still distance between us, but it was gentler. Liam came by often during his first semester at Boston College. We started talking more, mostly about construction, something to build on. The family I had shattered never truly healed. The next Thanksgiving, the table had vacant seats where my mother, brother, and sister used to be. I hosted a quiet dinner, with just my kids and a couple of business partners. No one brought up the ones who weren't there. After everyone had gone, I stood at the window, watching the snow drift onto the dark lawn. Amber appeared beside me, her reflection in the glass, carrying a weight beyond her 16 years. Was it worth it, Dad? She asked softly. Destroying everyone who hurt you. Being right but alone. I took a moment to reflect. The betrayal had been real. The consequences had been fair. I had taken back what was mine, and drawn lines no one would ever dare cross again. Yes, I finally answered, steady and clear. I don't forgive betrayal. I don't forget disloyalty. That's who I am. Amber kept her gaze on my face. "Then I feel sorry for you," she murmured, "because one day you'll realize revenge wasn't worth the price you paid." She walked away, leaving me at the window, ruler of what was left. I had won every fight in my quest for justice. The price? My family, my ties, maybe even parts of my soul. But I held firm. Betrayal wouldn't be excused, loyalty wouldn't be overlooked, and justice would always be served, if that meant stepping into the future alone. With only fragile connections to my kids, then so be it. Some prices are worth it. Some truths are too important to compromise, and some men like me would rather walk alone than ever trust again. Outside, the snow kept falling, laying a quiet white sheet over the yard, sealing away the past in its cold hush. That's where this story ends. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, click the video on your screen, and I'll see you there.